Attention! From here on out, I will be your new commanding officer for this mission. As of right now, the situation is as follows. We have pushed the enemy back 2 clicks and are building additional defenses. We got a few new toys we can use to fight our enemy, including machine guns and tanks. You want to know their evolution and what they are capable of? Then listen up. Where am I supposed to put this? Well, that's convenient. Dating back to 1884, we got the first ever modern machine gun, invented by Hiram Stevens Maxim in the British Empire. It was the first fully automatic machine gun in the world. Naming his creation after himself, the Maxim machine gun was one of a kind and unique even to this day, as it was water-cooled, meaning that as long as it had ammo and nothing jams, it can shoot all at once. Next to create a lead spitter was Denmark. In 1902, creating the Madsen light machine gun, designed by Colonel Wilhelm Herman Oluf Madsen, and that same year the weapon being adopted into the Royal Danish Army. In fact, it was so popular, it was even adapted into the Russian army. The Germans, hearing their neighbors creating cool toys, they also wanted their own. Because of course they do. In 1902, creating the Maschinengewehr 08, being an adaptation of Hiram Maxim's machine gun. And at this point, majority of machine guns were either adaptations or inspired by the Maxim machine gun, because it was cheap and effective at mowing down infantry. Moving on to the vodka drinking bears, they wanted their own machine gun. Seeing the tea-slurping empire having cool stuff, naturally, also wanting some. The Russian Empire looked at the Maxim and decided to take it. All they changed was chamber it in Russian 7.62x54 rifle cartridge, naming it the Pulemyot Maxima M1910, because it was made in 1910.
The British teamed up with the Americans and designed a new machine gun, one capable of being handheld, introducing the Lewis gun, designed by Isaac Newton Lewis in 1911. Battle-tested in 1914, it was used in the British Army up until the Second World War. The gun's characteristic was that it had a round magazine, which was inserted on the top. The gun worked via gas, using it as propellant, and also having a piston in the back with a spring to make it shoot. In conclusion, it was a well-made weapon, being loved by its users.
Later on, Vickers purchased the Maxim company, which led to the creation of the Vickers machine gun in 1912. Very closely resembling the Maxim, it was also water-cooled. The Vickers was more reliable and its weight was reduced. The Vickers machine gun was quickly adopted with the British Army, giving it to infantry but also equipping it into armored cars and later on tanks. But more on those later. The French followed suit and made their own machine gun in 1914, calling it the Hotchkiss Emily 1914 machine gun. They made earlier versions in 1889, however, the most used variant was the 1914 model, with over 65,000 models being made. It was chambered in 8mm Baguette cartridges, and was designed by Captain Baron Adolf Otkolik. After the Hotchkiss, the Croissant peasants in 1915 created the Chauchat light machine gun. This Baguette launcher was chambered in 8mm cartridges, however, with this weapon perhaps Baguettes would have been a better weapon choice since this gun's reputation was poor, experts claiming it to be the worst machine gun ever created. Coming in last were the Americans, entering the war in April 6, 1917. They had arrived in a bloody conflict. What do? Create another machine gun. Introducing the Browning M1918, otherwise known as the BAR, with the prototype being made in 1918. It fired 7.62mm Freedom lead. It was very popular within its users, with improved versions of the weapon being used in future conflicts such as the Second World War and the Korean War. The British started experimenting with new ways to weaponize vehicles. After some success with putting machine guns and later on armor on cars, they noticed that they couldn't effectively travel on mud and over trenches.
This led to the creation of the first tank prototype in 1915. They called it Little Willie. They called it a tank because it was supposed to deceive the German spies, making them think it was a giant mobile water tank. In fact, it was a mobile bunker housing up to 6 personnel, and most importantly, it had tracks instead of tires. Now they could travel somewhat smoothly across the battlefield and even over trenches that weren't too big.
The following year, in 1916, British engineers designed a new tank, the Mark I male and female tank. What was different between them? The male variant had two 57mm guns on each side and 3 machine guns in a sponson. On the other hand, the female had just 5 heavy machine guns. Each model had 150 units produced, totaling 300. The intention of the Mark I was to support infantry advances, helping clear out defenders situated in trenches, and also be able to cross trenches even wide as 2.5 meters. This came as a massive shock to the Germans, as they had not predicted massive British bricks rolling over them. However, this era of tanks had their flaws. They were very hard to produce, unreliable, constantly breaking down, with extreme heat inside due to poor or lack of proper ventilation. In that same year, the French created their own prototype of a tank, the Schneider CA1, and officially being introduced in 1916. However, it didn't appeal to the French generals, as it had failed to pass tests. Very thin armor compared to other at this time, poor speed and range. Its armament consisted of 2 heavy machine guns and 1 75mm cannon. Overall, it was a poor, unfinished design. After the failure of the CA1, a new French prototype tank appeared in late 1916, the Saint-Chamond. First battle tested in early 1917, which immediately appealed to everyone. Soldiers describing it as big, powerful, and had potential. Yet, there were complaints about its driving capabilities. The Saint-Chamond was equipped with 1 75mm gun and 4 heavy machine guns. French engineers didn't stop there, as in December of 1916 they produced a new prototype, the Renault FT-17 series of tanks. 2 variants. One had a 37mm cannon and the other either a normal or heavy machine gun. It was the first tank with a traditional design of tanks which were produced later on, having a rotating turret on the top. This tank was mass-produced with 3,700 units made, production ending in 1919. In the meantime, the British were busy again, and in 1917 produced the Mark IV. And similar with the Mark I, it had a male and female version. Male one having 2 57mm cannons and 3 machine guns, female having 5 machine guns. During various battles, over 40 Mark IV tanks were captured by the German Empire, using them against their creators, naming them Beutepanzerwagen, and increasing the 8-man crew size of the British to a 12-man crew, the British 57mm cannon being swapped for a German counterpart. In late 1917, Germany made prototypes for the A7V tank, unleashing it that same year. It had 18 crew members, 1 57mm cannon and 6 machine guns. It was supposed to be a mobile shooting fortress, however their performance wasn't great, as the same day they were sent into battle, one was already captured by Australian forces, which they named Mephisto. In total, there were only 20 models made before Germany signed an armistice, which at 11 am, 11th of November 1918, the fighting had to stop.